The stars above Earth had always been a constant in the night sky, twinkling peacefully as if to remind humanity that they were part of something greater. But one day, the stars were different. A strange pattern appeared, like a dark wave creeping toward them from the farthest reaches of space. At first, no one knew what it meant, but the Earth's defense network quickly recognized the signs, an approaching fleet, larger than any human force had ever faced. Captain Jaiwan sat in the command center, staring at the monitors that lit up the darkroom. She had been in the Earth's Space Defense Force for years, but this moment was unlike any other. The alien fleet wasn't just approaching. They were coming for Earth. The message was clear in their movements, and they were not slowing down. Jaiwan felt the weight of the situation settle over her. She had trained for moments like this, but never thought she'd face an enemy so powerful, so sure of themselves. The Thalvax Dominion, a race of technologically advanced aliens, had crossed paths with Earth before, but this was the first time they were directly targeting humanity. They had never given humans much attention, thinking them too primitive to pose any real threat. But now, they were about to make their mistake. The Council's orders were simple. Warn them. Send a message. Let them know that Earth was not to be invaded without a fight. But Jaiwan knew the odds were slim. The Thalvax had vast fleets, their technology far beyond what Earth had. She thought about the human soldiers, the pilots, the engineers, everyone working together for this very moment. Could they defend Earth? Could they win? She didn't have the answer, but she knew what had to be done. The message was ready. Send the transmission, Jaiwan said calmly to her communications officer. The officer hesitated for just a second. Are you sure? They might not listen. The Thalvax. They won't take us seriously. I know, Jaiwan replied, but they have to hear it. The message was sent, broadcasting across all frequencies directly to the Thalvax fleet. In it, Jaiwan's voice was steady, but it carried an undeniable weight of warning. This is a message to the Thalvax Dominion. Earth is not a planet to conquer. You are warned to turn back. This is your only warning. For a moment, everything was silent. The hum of the command center and the quiet clicking of keyboards were the only sounds. Jaiwan's heart beat faster as she waited for a response. She knew it was unlikely the Thalvax would heed her warning. They were too proud, too sure of themselves. But she had to try. Hours passed, and still no response came. Jaiwan didn't take her eyes off the screen. She knew that time was running out. Every second, the enemy was getting closer. And with no reply, it became clear that the Thalvax were about to make a grave mistake. They had ignored humanity's warning. The Earth was ready, even if they didn't know it yet. Commander Kareth of the Thalvax Dominion stood in the grand war room of the Vraxilian Asterisk, the largest and most powerful ship in their fleet. The walls around him were lined with screens, each displaying different parts of their massive armada as it approached Earth. The fleet was ready to strike. It was a sight of power, an unshakable force that had conquered many worlds. Kareth felt pride swelling in his chest as he looked over the thousands of ships under his command. Then, his communications officer spoke, breaking his thoughts. "Commander, we've received a message from Earth." Kareth turned, raising an eyebrow. Earth? What could they possibly want? The officer quickly pressed a button, and the screen shifted to a simple transmission. Kareth leaned in as the voice of Captain Jaiwan filled the room. "This is a message to the Thalvax Dominion. Earth is not a planet to conquer. You are warned to turn back. This is your only warning." Kareth's lips curled into a small smile, not out of amusement, but out of disbelief. He looked around at his officers, who were now watching the transmission with curiosity. The humans were sending a warning. Did they think their words could stop the might of the Thalvax fleet? Is this some kind of joke? Kareth muttered. Who do they think they are, speaking to us this way? He waved a hand in dismissal. Delete the message. We don't have time for these foolish attempts at negotiation. One of the officers stepped forward, nervous. "Commander, they may be more advanced than we thought. Their technology might be different." Kareth scoffed. "Different? They're human. Primitive. They cannot possibly understand the power they are up against." He turned back to the fleet's movements on the screen. "The Thalvax Dominion has never failed in a conquest. Why would they think they can stop us now?" He paused, then looked directly at his officers. "Ignore their warning. We will continue as planned. Earth is ripe for the taking." The officers nodded, but the unease in the air was palpable. Kareth saw it, but he chose to ignore it. In his mind, the Thalvax were the strongest race in the galaxy. They had already conquered dozens of planets, their technology unmatched. Earth, with its backward societies and unpolished weapons, could not stand against them. "Proceed with the invasion," Kareth ordered. "There is no reason to fear the humans. They are nothing but a small obstacle in our path." As the fleet moved closer to Earth, the crew of the Vrexilian prepared for battle. They did not know that the humans had already begun to prepare too. The Thalvax saw Earth's warning as nothing more than a blip on the radar, a sign of weakness. They believed they would sweep through Earth's defenses with ease. What they didn't know was that their arrogance would soon be their downfall. The Thalvax had underestimated humanity's strength, and this mistake would cost them far more than they could imagine. As the Thalvax fleet moved closer, the people of Earth were not sitting idle. Behind the scenes, in the shadows of the moon's dark side, and in the silent orbits of Mars, humanity was preparing for war. The Thalvax might have dismissed the humans as weak, but they had no idea what Earth had hidden away. The warning sent by Captain G1 was just the beginning. Earth's true power was ready to be unleashed. Admiral Hai-Jin stood in the command center on Earth's moon base, watching the incoming data. Her face was calm, but her mind raced. She had been preparing for years, working in secret to ensure that Earth could defend itself from threats far greater than anything they had ever faced before. And now, that preparation was about to pay off. The Thalvax may have had superior numbers, but Earth had something they didn't: unity and innovation. Hai-Jin's orders were clear. When the Thalvax arrived, Earth would show them that humanity was not to be underestimated. In the heart of Mars, Chief Engineer Da-Hyun was overseeing the final tests of Earth's new weapons. These weapons were unlike anything seen in the galaxy before. For years, Da-Hyun had worked tirelessly with a team of scientists and engineers, designing and building weapons that could stand up to the Thalvax threat. The most powerful of these was the quantum disruption cannon, a weapon capable of breaking apart the fabric of space itself, turning enemy ships into rubble with a single shot. Da-Hyun was checking the weapon systems when the alert came through. The Thalvax were almost within range. He felt a sense of calm wash over him. The weapon was ready, and it would be humanity's answer to the invaders. On Earth, the skies were filled with activity. The newly formed human fleet had launched from various space stations and hidden bases. Ships of all sizes, some sleek and advanced, others old and repaired, moved into position. They were a symbol of Earth's determination, a ragtag collection of the best humanity had to offer. Su Bin, a young pilot who had joined the Earth Space Force just 2 years ago, sat in the cockpit of his fighter. His hands gripped the controls, and his eyes were focused. The Thalvax had underestimated him, and all the others like him. They thought humans were weak. They thought humans didn't stand a chance. But Su Bin knew better. In the control room, Admiral Hai-Jin's voice echoed through the speakers. "All ships, prepare for combat. We're not just defending Earth. We're defending everything we've worked for. Our families, our future. We fight for it all." The human fleet moved into formation, ready for the battle that would decide the fate of their world. But the Thalvax had no idea what they were about to face. The human ships may have been outnumbered, but they were not outmatched. They had weapons the Thalvax had never even dreamed of. The quantum disruption cannons hummed to life, their power surging through the weapon systems. Da-Hyun and his team watched anxiously from Mars, waiting for the first sign of battle. They knew the Thalvacs were coming, but they didn't know how the humans would respond. Earth had never fought a war like this before, but the humans were ready. They weren't just going to defend their home. They were going to show the Thalvacs that Earth would never be an easy target. The battle was about to begin, and humanity had a secret weapon: their unwavering will to survive. The moment the Thalvacs fleet crossed into Earth's orbit, the battle began. It was supposed to be a simple invasion, a quick sweep of a primitive planet. But for the Thalvacs, it was about to turn into something far more difficult than they could have imagined. Captain Jai-1 stood at the front of the command center on the flagship Seong-Gai*, her eyes locked on the main screen. The Thalvacs fleet filled the view, dark shapes against the blue-black backdrop of space. Their ships were massive, sleek, and bristling with weapons. It was a terrifying sight. "Ready the fleet," Jai-1 ordered, her voice steady but filled with determination. She knew what was coming. The Thalvacs might have underestimated humanity, but they were about to learn a hard lesson. On Earth's side, the human fleet was nowhere near as large, but it was well prepared. As the Thalvacs ships advanced, the Earth fleet moved into position. Su-bin, one of Earth's best pilots, was in the cockpit of his fighter ship, staring at the screen. His hands gripped the controls tightly. His mission was simple: protect the fleet and hit any enemy ship that got too close. The Thalvacs ships opened fire first, their powerful energy weapons flashing across the sky. But what they didn't expect was the speed and agility of the human ships. Earth's fighters darted through space with precision, avoiding the enemy's blasts with ease. The humans had spent years developing their own combat tactics, learning how to use their smaller, faster ships to their advantage. Su-bin's fighter banked sharply to the left as a Thalvacs laser shot past him, narrowly missing. He fired back, sending a volley of missiles toward one of the enemy cruisers. The explosion was massive, and the ship broke apart into pieces. It was the first victory for the human fleet, and it sent a shockwave through the Thalvacs. "Nice shot," Su-bin called out another pilot, Kim-woo, over the comms. "Let's show them what we're made of." Su-bin grinned, but there was no time for celebration. The battle was far from over. Back on the Seong-Gai*, Captain Jai-1 watched as her ships moved into attack positions. The Thalvacs had underestimated humanity's ability to fight, and now they were starting to pay for it. But Jai-1 knew that this was just the beginning. The Thalvacs would not give up so easily. "Activate the quantum disruption cannons," she ordered. Da-hyun's team on Mars had been waiting for this moment. The massive weapons hummed to life, and the first shot fired out into the heart of the Thalvacs fleet. The beam of energy shot through space, cutting through enemy ships like they were made of paper. The Thalvacs cruisers and destroyers were torn apart, their shields unable to withstand the power of the quantum disruption cannons. The humans had just given the Thalvacs a taste of their own power. But the Thalvacs weren't done yet. The remaining ships began to form a defensive line, preparing for a counterattack. Kareth, the Thalvacs commander, had been watching the chaos unfold from his flagship. He clenched his fists in anger. "This isn't over," Kareth growled. "They will regret underestimating us." The battle continued, and the humans pressed forward with everything they had. They were not just defending Earth. They were fighting for their homes, their families, and their future. The Thalvacs had thought it would be easy to take Earth, but now they were realizing that humanity would not go down without a fight. Su-bin's heart raced as he flew through the chaos. The odds were against them, but the humans were proving that they were a force to be reckoned with. The Thalvacs had made a grave mistake, and now Earth was fighting back. As the battle raged on, Commander Kareth stood at the helm of the Vrexilian*, watching his fleet struggle against the unexpected resistance from Earth's defenders. The Thalvacs had never faced an enemy like this before. The humans fought with a determination that Kareth couldn't understand. Their ships were smaller, less advanced, yet they were landing hits on the Thalvacs fleet. What had gone wrong? Kareth had been certain that Earth would fall easily. The Thalvax had studied the humans, and all their records pointed to one conclusion. They were weak, divided, and incapable of standing against the might of the Thalvax dominion. But now, as he watched his ship slowly retreat under fire, he began to question everything. Vorkal, a Thalvax tactician, stood beside Kareth, watching the chaos unfold. He had been studying Earth's history in an attempt to understand why the humans were fighting so fiercely. He had hoped to find an answer, but all he found was a pattern of unexpected strength in the face of overwhelming odds. The humans, Vorkal began slowly, his voice filled with confusion. They have always fought through their troubles. I studied their past. They have survived terrible wars, plagues, and even self-destruction. Yet every time, they rise again. Kareth turned to him, his eyes narrowing. What do you mean? They're nothing but a weak species. Vorkal hesitated. I'm not so sure anymore. They'd been pushed to the brink many times, yet they continue to fight. Even when their own people seem to destroy them, they'd rebuild. They learn. They don't give up. Kareth shook his head, unwilling to accept what Vorkal was suggesting. The Thalvax had always been the ones who adapted and learned. It was what made them superior, but the humans, they were supposed to crumble. And yet, they had not. As the battle continued, Kareth found himself troubled by the thought of human resilience. He had always believed that the Thalvax would simply sweep through Earth, taking it without any real struggle. But now, with every strike from a human ship, it was clear that the Thalvax had misjudged humanity. Back on Earth, Captain Jai-1 watched the battle unfold from the command center. The humans were winning, but she knew the Thalvax wouldn't back down so easily. They had underestimated Earth's strength, but that didn't mean the fight was over. The Thalvax still had an enormous fleet, and the battle was far from finished. Jai-1 glanced at her team. Each of them focused on their tasks. There was no fear in their eyes, only resolve. They had trained for this, worked for this moment, and now they were proving that humanity could fight, not just with weapons, but with heart. Su-bin's voice came over the comms. Captain, we've hit several enemy ships, but they're regrouping for another strike. They're not backing off. I think they're starting to understand that we won't give up. Jai-1 smiled, though her heart was heavy with the knowledge that this was only the beginning. Keep pushing forward, Su-bin. We've got this. As the Thalvax ships regrouped, Vorkal's concerns grew. The humans were adapting faster than he could have imagined. Their ships dodged every attack, their strategies changed with each passing minute, and their fighters fought with a level of courage that no one had expected. The more Vorkal observed, the more he realized that the humans were not just a weak species, they were something different. They were survivors. They learned from their mistakes, they fought for each other, and they never gave up. It was this very tenacity, this strength of will, that made them dangerous. On the battlefield, the Thalvax fleet continued to struggle. Kareth's frustration mounted as he watched his ships fall, one after another. The humans were relentless, and no matter how many times the Thalvax struck, they seemed to come back stronger. Kareth could no longer ignore it. The Thalvax had made a mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. And as he watched the humans continue to fight with everything they had, he began to fear what would happen if they ever fully unleashed their strength. The battle was turning in humanity's favor. The Thalvax fleet, once so sure of their victory, was now on the defensive. Despite the power of their advanced weapons and superior numbers, they had not counted on Earth's will to fight. The humans were showing strength in ways the Thalvax had never imagined. Captain Jai-1 stood tall in the command center, watching as the Thalvax ships faltered. Her team was working with perfect synchronization. They had trained for years, preparing for this moment, and now it was paying off. The Earth fleet had taken out several key enemy ships, and the Thalvax were beginning to retreat. But Jai-1 knew better than to think the battle was won. The Thalvax would not give up so easily. Keep pushing forward, Jai-1 commanded, her voice steady. They may be retreating, but this isn't over. We need to finish what we started. Su Bin's voice came through the comms. Captain, we've got a new problem. A large group of Thalvax reinforcements is on the way. They're coming from behind the asteroid belt. Jai-1's eyes narrowed. The Thalvax were trying to flank them. They had expected the human fleet to be defeated quickly, but now they were trying to regroup and bring in more forces to overwhelm Earth's defenders. Prepare for another wave, Jai-1 said quickly. Activate the new defense systems. Back on Mars, Chief Engineer Da-hyun had been waiting for this moment. He had helped design the new defense systems for Earth, and now they were going to be tested in battle. The weapons were powerful, built to stop the Thalvax in their tracks, but Da-hyun knew it was all about timing. If they didn't deploy them at the right moment, the Thalvax reinforcements could turn the tide. Defense systems online, reported one of Da-hyun's engineers. The new anti-missile shields are ready. We can intercept any incoming attacks. Da-hyun nodded. Good. Let's hope this works. The Earth fleet had already been through the worst of the battle, but now they were facing a critical test. The Thalvax reinforcements were coming in fast, and their firepower was overwhelming. Earth's ships were smaller, less advanced, but they had something the Thalvax didn't: the power of unity. Every pilot, every soldier, every engineer was working together to protect their home. Su Bin dove his fighter ship into the chaos, weaving through the enemy fire. He knew he had to be careful. One wrong move, and he would be gone. But his instincts guided him, and with every shot, he knocked out another Thalvax ship. His fighter, though smaller and older than the enemy ships, was quick and maneuverable. The Thalvax hadn't expected the humans to fight this way, and it was starting to show. We're holding them back, Su Bin shouted over the comms. But they keep coming. Jai-1 gritted her teeth. The Thalvax were relentless, but so were the humans. She had seen it with her own eyes, their ability to adapt, to fight back no matter the odds. And now, they were going to use every tool they had. Activate the quantum disruption cannons, she ordered. Target their largest ships. On Earth's moon base, Da-hyun's team was ready. The quantum disruption cannons were humanity's most powerful weapon. When they fired, they could tear apart the fabric of space itself, ripping through entire fleets with a single shot. The Thalvax didn't know what was coming. The first shot from the cannons lit up the sky, a beam of pure energy that tore through the Thalvax reinforcements. Ships exploded in bright flashes, and the Thalvax were thrown into chaos. The humans had just delivered a crushing blow to the enemy, but the battle was far from over. We've got them on the run, shouted one of the engineers from Earth's command center. The Thalvax ships are retreating. But Jai-1 remained focused. Don't get too comfortable. They'll regroup. We need to make sure they don't have a chance to strike back. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, it seemed like Earth had the upper hand. The Thalvax had underestimated humanity's strength, and now they were paying the price. The humans had fought back with everything they had, and it was beginning to show. Kareth, watching the retreat unfold from the Vraxilian asterisk, felt a deep, gnawing fear. The humans were not going to give up. They were proving that they could fight, not just with weapons, but with something far stronger, their will to survive. And it was that strength, that determination, that Kareth feared most of all. The Thalvax fleet had been pushed back, but Commander Kareth knew it wasn't over. His ships were damaged, many of his forces were scattered, and the humans were more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The battle had become a test of endurance, and Kareth was beginning to feel the weight of the situation. On the Vraxilian asterisk, Kareth stood at the command center, his hands gripping the console in frustration. He had underestimated Earth's strength, but now he had no choice but to face the truth. The humans were relentless. Every time they thought they were beaten, they found a way to fight back, harder and stronger than before. We need to launch a final assault, Kareth said. his voice cold. "Gather every ship that can still fight. We'll hit them with everything we have." Vorkal, the tactician, stepped forward. "But Commander, the humans have shown us they can adapt. Their weapons, their fighters, they've proven stronger than expected. Another attack might only lead to more losses." Kareth turned to Vorkal, his eyes hard. "We have no choice. If we don't crush them now, they will only grow stronger. We cannot afford to retreat any longer." Vorkal hesitated but nodded. "Understood." The Thalvax ships began to regroup, gathering their remaining forces for one final push. The humans had dealt them a serious blow, but Kareth was determined to finish what he had started. Earth would fall, no matter the cost. Back on Earth, Captain G1 stood in the control center of the Seongjai*, her eyes focused on the screens in front of her. The Thalvax were gathering their strength, preparing for a final assault. J1 knew this would be the hardest part of the battle. The humans had already done more than anyone could have expected, but now they had to hold on, to finish the fight. "Everyone, listen up," J1 said, her voice calm but filled with purpose. "The Thalvax are making their last move. This will be our toughest fight yet. We can't let them win. They thought they could take us easily, but they were wrong. Now we show them what Earth is made of. Fight for your families, your homes, your future. We fight together." The crew in the command center responded with a loud cheer. There was no fear in their eyes, only determination. They had come so far, and they would not let the Thalvax take their world. G1's heart swelled with pride as she looked around at her team. They were ready. Su Bin, still in the cockpit of his fighter, was ready too. He had seen his fellow pilots fall, but he had also seen them get back up and keep fighting. The humans weren't going to stop now. Not when they had everything to lose. Su Bin's hands gripped the controls tightly as he prepared for the final attack. "We can do this," he muttered to himself. "We have to." As the Thalvax began their assault, the human fleet moved into position. The space around Earth was filled with chaos as lasers and missiles flew in all directions. The sound of battle echoed in the void, a fierce reminder of how high the stakes were. The Thalvax were throwing everything they had at Earth, but the humans were determined to defend their home. The first wave of Thalvax ships charged forward, their weapons firing with devastating force. But the human fleet was ready. Earth's ships, though smaller and less advanced, fought with precision. They darted through the battlefield, dodging the Thalvax fire and striking back with deadly accuracy. Each human fighter had a purpose, each ship a part of the larger plan. They moved as one, a well-coordinated force that could not be broken. The humans had something the Thalvax did not, a deep love for their world, their families, and each other. This connection, this unity, made them stronger than any weapon. But even with their strength, Earth was still outnumbered. The Thalvax ships continued to press forward, pushing the human fleet to the edge. J1 watched in silence, knowing that every decision she made now would be crucial. "We need the quantum disruption cannons again," J1 said, her voice sharp. "Target the largest Thalvax ships." Back on Mars, Dahyun's team activated the weapons once more. The massive energy cannons powered up, their hum filling the room. The first shot was fired, and once again, the sky lit up with a blinding flash as the energy beam tore through the Thalvax ships. The Thalvax fleet began to break apart, their forces scattered and weakened by the humans' unyielding resistance. Kareth watched in disbelief as his ships were destroyed one by one. This can't be happening," Kareth muttered. The humans were winning, and for the first time, Kareth realized that Earth might not fall after all. The Thalvax had made a grave mistake by underestimating humanity. The final battle was approaching, and the Thalvax could only hope to survive long enough to fight another day. But Earth had already proven one thing: humanity would never surrender. The battle had reached its peak. The Thalvax fleet was shattered, their forces scattered and weakened. The humans, once thought to be easy prey, had turned the tide and were now on the brink of victory. The Thalvacs were no longer the unstoppable invaders they had once seemed. Earth's defenders had proven something that Kareth, the Thalvacs commander, had never believed possible. Captain Jaiwan stood in the command center of the Seongai*, her eyes focused on the battle unfolding before her. The human fleet had fought with everything they had, and now they were moments away from winning. The Thalvacs ships were retreating, their forces too weakened to continue the fight. "Keep pushing them back," Jaiwan ordered. "We cannot let them regroup. This is our moment." Subin's voice came through the comms, his tone filled with excitement. "Captain, the Thalvacs are pulling back. They're retreating." Jaiwan felt a surge of relief, but she knew there was still work to be done. The Thalvacs had underestimated humanity, and now it was time to finish what they had started. She turned to her crew. "Prepare the final assault. We end this today." On the Vraxilian*, Commander Kareth was watching the chaos unfold. His fleet was broken, and his forces were retreating. The humans had done the impossible. They had fought back with a strength that Kareth had never expected. He gritted his teeth, unwilling to accept defeat. But deep down, he knew it was over. The humans had shown him a side of their species that no one had ever believed existed. They were not just survivors, they were fighters. And now, the Thalvacs were learning the hard way that Earth was not a place to be taken lightly. "We can still fight," Kareth muttered, though his voice lacked the confidence it once had. "We will rebuild. We will return." But even as he spoke, the damage was done. The Thalvacs were beaten, their fleet scattered across the stars. Earth had won. Back on Earth, the celebrations had already begun. The human fleet, battered but victorious, slowly returned to their stations. The battle had been long, and the losses had been heavy, but they had held their ground. They had won. Jaiwan watched the skies, her heart filled with pride. They had done it. Earth had survived. And not just survived, they had won. "We did it," Subin said over the comms, his voice filled with awe. "We really did it." Jaiwan smiled, but her mind was already looking ahead. The battle was over, but the war had been more than just about defense. It had been about proving to the galaxy that Earth was not to be underestimated. The humans had shown they could stand up to any enemy, no matter how powerful. "The Thalvacs will remember this day," Jaiwan said quietly. "But we will also remember that no one can take our home from us. Earth is ours to protect." As the last of the Thalvacs ships fled, Kareth watched from his flagship. His heart was heavy with the weight of failure, but he knew that the Thalvacs would be back. They would regroup, rebuild, and return to finish what they had started. But now he understood something he hadn't before. The humans were not just another weak species. They were strong, they were resilient, and no matter what the Thalvacs did, Earth would always fight back. Back on Earth, Jaiwan and her crew stood together, knowing that the war was over for now, but the future was still uncertain. They had won this battle, but they had also sent a message to the galaxy. Humanity would never surrender. Earth was not just a planet. It was a force to be reckoned with, and as long as there was breath in their bodies, the humans would fight to defend it. The Thalvacs had learned a harsh lesson. Underestimate humanity, and you would pay the price. And for the first time in a long while, the galaxy would know that Earth had the strength to stand tall against any invader. The humans had proven that they were not just survivors, they were warriors, and they would never back down.